Is Bitcoin another meme?
Bitcoin is another meme, but it's on like a different scale.
People want to think that maybe tomorrow I'm gonna hit Donald Trump at $1 million market cap and make $1 gazillion.
Making money makes it worse. Losing money is what makes me the happiest. If you can just like trade Bitcoin profitably, there's no reason why you can't be just like a mega billionaire.
One piece of advice to give to the average trader, what would you say to them? Hey, we'll get right back to the podcast, but first I want to talk to you about today's sponsor, Vertex Protocol. Vertex is a cutting-edge decentralized perp exchange that brings you the best of both worlds. With its lightning-fast order book model, Vertex offers precise price discovery and minimal slippage. Take advantage of cross-margin trading to optimize your capital and trade the most popular assets like Pepe, Doge, WIF, Memecoin, Eigenlayer, and more, all with leverage. So why wait? Dive into decentralized trading today. Visit vertexprotocol.com to learn more. Trade smarter, trade with Vertex. Excellent. Well, welcome today to our friend Thiccy. Thiccy was actually our first podcast guest ever, and he's back. And I think, maybe actually the only returning podcast guest now that I think of it. But who rose to prominence as an astute Twitter researcher at first, and then kind of became one of the most prominent trader personalities on crypto, and then vanished. So we're super stoked to have him. But my first question for you, Thiccy, where were you? Why did you leave? What happened?
Yeah, Twitter's interesting in that it's obviously very useful for networking and sharing stuff with other people, but also there's always just a natural tendency to share details about yourself and use it as just form of social media or a diary or something. And I think I've noticed this in a lot of other people too, but especially for myself, I was just kind of commingling the two. And I think when you get well known enough, it just doesn't make sense to share intimate details about your life to hundreds of thousands of people that know nothing about you. You end up becoming sort of a mini celebrity, and they don't really know all the nuances of what you say or how you think or who you are. And it was just leading to a lot of unhappiness on my end. So I just felt like it was time to take a break. The second angle was that as someone who trades, you really do want to be as free of bias as possible. Right. And it's hard to state public views, especially when you're trading really low time frames, and not have that affect your trading. You might be long one day and short bias the other, and it's hard to flip like that publicly. So it made a lot of sense for me just to take a break from that end and just trade for myself first. And then, that's the initial reason why I left.
Right. And it's interesting. We actually talked about this. We've talked about this previously about the purpose of social media, right? And crypto happens to be this space that's very tied to Twitter specifically and social media. And for whatever reason, that's kind of the venue people congregate. But I think it has diminishing utility in a couple of fields. Obviously, big traders tend to kind of step back. Obviously, we've seen GCR step back. Hisaka, some big personalities have kind of stop using the platform as much. And I imagine too, you're not doxed, but you are face doxed, so your personality is out there that it's kind of tricky. So were you still participating in the crypto markets this entire time?
Yeah, I've still active as ever trading. It was good to just trade and not have to. I opened up the Telegram group again in September, and then I came back to Twitter officially a month ago. But yeah, the break was nice. It was useful for me to reset and reevaluate Twitter's role in what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. Right, and I think one thing important in all of kind of professional life, money, trading is the idea of kind of utility. And I have a really good friend who today he's talking about feeling a bit of FOMO, taking some stuff off the table because he wants to buy a house. And I was bro, ultimately, it's not about the crypto, right? It's about the house. It's about the utility of what you can have. So I think that's important to recognize. I have a question. I think a lot of people thought you kind of made it, dropped off the earth. Have you made it? Are you at a point where you can say you made it? And if so, what does that mean?
So, when I first joined this industry, everyone else, you have this number where it's if you hit it, you're set for life, and then you can just fuck off and do whatever the fuck you want, right? But I think that's like, it's like kind of a pipe dream. It's like not real in the sense that like making it is like, it's kind of illusory. It's making it is just like when you stop sacrificing the today or for a future,
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely.
And during my break, I realized that like, I'm never going to be satisfied with what I have. That's just like human nature. And I feel like a lot of people go through this where they like, maybe they hit their initial goals and they just like keep making higher and higher goals and they're trapped in the game forever. And, I don't want to like be like that. So, I think for me, like the difference between what makes it enjoyable versus like what makes this like a hell is just like how much of my self-worth and how much time I'm spending, trading. I still like trading. I love trading, but like, it's not worth like killing myself and burning through my health and it's making myself unhappy trying to chase some number. So like, for me, it's just like, I still want to make money, but like, I'm happy to just take it day by day and enjoy myself more. Is like what I told myself.
We've talked previously about like the idea of like value creation and what your kind of role is in crypto markets. And I think your perspective, at least if it hasn't changed since we've last chatted, is that like you are a value creator in the market. I guess my question is, right, like with a lot of these professions, trading, poker, some of these more speculative things, like they can sometimes feel kind of like hollow or different. You spend a lot of time trading. Is it something that's still really interesting and rewarding to you? Or do you feel like at a certain kind of, once you reach a certain financial milestone, it becomes a little less kind of motivating?
I always enjoy hopping on your podcast because you like to ask these like deep and philosophical questions. I think they like matter a lot. I don't think enough people think about them. Uh-huh. But I mean, yes, like I do think like similar to poker, like, where do I start with this? Speculation is a part of human nature. So there will always be a need for market participants to keep, the market sufficient for these speculators. It's a broader question of like, is the asset that we're speculating on like actually beneficial to human society? And it's always like an open question. And like, it's just, it's been different things throughout history. But like, for the most part, like new technology and speculation are inseparable. So we can just assume like broad, like, yes, like I guess it's just part of capitalism, part of human nature. So the speculation is necessary. And if speculation is necessary, then, you need people to keep the market sufficient. And that's where I view like my value add in the world is if I keep the market sufficient and if I can do the job of like, 10 people, 100 people, then, I am adding to the world because those people can't spend their days trading markets all day. They have to do productive, jobs in society. So it's kind of like an addition by subtraction is like, if you're very good at doing this, then you force other people to do productive things.
That's such an interesting take. And it's one I haven't heard. I've also heard, Light, who's also kind of a famous crypto trader that maybe is here, maybe isn't. He talks about, I remember listening to a podcast with him and he said, as long as I have edge, I'll continue to trade. And I think that's an interesting perspective too. And it kind of relates to what you're saying there.
Yeah. I mean, to answer the second part of your question is like, I like playing the game. And I think like, I think in this generation, I was like born, like pretty much I just play video games my entire life. And it might be like a newer thing in humanity. Someone who's just like born with the internet, born with video games, and that's all they do. And I think there's like a growing class of that in society. And like I agree. Like as long as there's edge, it's still fun to play. So like I'll still be trading, but also like what you do with the money after you extract it from the markets is probably more importance to society than like extracting the money in itself. Like if you use it to help your family, your friends, other people, maybe you redirect it into more productive use cases. Like, right now that the hot thing to invest in that is like useful is like AI, longevity, and robotics, right? So like if you view yourself as just like a cog in the capitalist system that is extracting money from crypto and putting it into these productive, quote unquote, things, then like maybe that's your That's your value add.
Yeah, Santiago Santos talked about that exact same concept on this podcast where he's like, well, if I'm good at extracting value from markets, then I can direct that value to where I kind of deem fit. And I think I'm a good capital allocator, therefore I can justify the extraction of value from these markets. So that's an interesting perspective as well.
I'm seeing a lot of bigger VCs like crypto guys that made it from crypto, like doing this exact same thing where they're like branching out into not just crypto.
Mm-hmm. Like when I am very far from making it. I am very far from having made it. For my personal financial goals.
It's a mindset, Jack. But the number is not going to ever change anything. It's just a mindset.
Well, it's interesting. Like you get to a certain level of wealth, right? And there's different. People talk about different levels of wealth, and one is like not worrying about the day to day, and then another one is like not worrying about what you spend in the day to day, and then another one is being able to buy whatever you want, and then there's levels. There's all kinds of levels, right? And I think like every time I've leveled up, it's not like my life hasn't necessarily gotten better. In some ways, it was like fun to be like a backpacker in Europe on $20 a day. And more fun than maybe my life is even now. But I mean, my life is now rewarding in a whole host of other different ways. But I guess like my question is like when I think about life, I think about what money will enable me to do. So like some things I want to do, like I would love to have like a ranch someday or something, or I would love to sail around in a sailboat. Obviously, like everyone has these kind of own fantasies and ideas. However, I'm sure when you reach a certain net worth goal and all these things kind of open up to you, you have a different perspective on what you're kind of dreaming about and thinking about, and that kind of like future what that person is doing. What is that for you?
I don't think I've like made it by any means in terms of like wealth goals. Mm-hmm. I'm saying this like spiritually, but I'm also saying this because I don't want to get like fucking wrench attacked for any amount of money that I don't have. It is an upset concern for me.
Right.
But outside of that, like, even if you were to make like, let's say just like $100 million tomorrow, like you're not just going to magically become happy.
Of course.
And you're not going to, it's like, it's what you do afterwards. It's like, okay, I can finally turn my brain off and stop worrying about this. But like, you could just turn it off right now. I'm sure you have enough. I'm sure everyone listening has enough. Then you just turn it off and choose to be happy. It's like literally like a mental trap to be like, I need to have this much amount of money, or I just have to worry about this forever and not have my peace of mind.
Do you think reaching some level of financial security helped you get into that mindset? And have you been able to like turn off? Because you're still here,
I don't think making money helped on that at all. If anything, making money makes it worse because it makes me want more. I think actually losing money is what makes me the happiest in terms of it makes me realize like I can either just choose to like be like super upset about this loss and think I don't have enough and just like maybe worry about me like never getting there and just being like a broke loser forever, or I could like just choose not to be unhappy and be comfortable with what I have and just like live in the moment of day to day and happy. So like I'm still here because it's still a fun game to play, right? Like if you go back to the regular world, things just move so slowly and everyone's like, they're just like slower and it's just not as fun. So like there's a lot of value just being here every day, but maybe not to like just like kill yourself working 24/7 in the trenches. That probably isn't that fun when you're tired and exhausted and you have a shit ton of risk on, you can't sleep. That isn't very fun. But if you're like being more manageable and like having more fun, I think it's possible.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any of those? You talked a little bit about projects like AI, robotics, longevity. Do you have any of those projects that you're kind of interested in peripherally?
Yes, I'm like getting into it, just like researching more and just like writing small checks here and there. Mm-hmm. Everyone's following Brian Johnson and what he's doing. Everyone's following like the AI thing. Like the AI thing is useful because like not only is it interesting tech and it's like the future of where humanity's going, but also like if you're quick to follow along, then like you can find which crypto projects are kind of trying to do the same thing, and we're in an environment where those like tokens will pump too. So like you can also make a good amount of money doing it, as we saw with like the AI agents sort of rotation.
What do you think about like liquid markets versus the VC space? Does one have more appeal to you, or has their appeal changed to you over time?
I've always been, a lot more involved in liquid markets. The VC markets, I've been interested more in recently, but I think I'll always be a liquid investor, and that's always going to be my primary focus. And that's where I think just my edge is as a person.
Interesting. It's much more of a hectic space. It feels like it's so more cutthroat. It's so much more tangible if you're truly like able to have edge or not. Where VC kind of has a built-in advantage in like access, right? So
I don't know. I don't think so. Actually, I think VC has like an access edge too. Like the best. There's a lot of adverse selection.
No. That's what I mean. I mean, like VC is like if you can get into a deal, then it's so much more likely that you're gonna make money. Where if you buy something in liquid markets, like who's to say that asset is gonna go up or down in price?
Oh, you're saying liquid's harder?
Yeah, liquid's way harder.
I think it depends. I think in certain regimes, like liquid can be a lot easier. Just like when everything's just going up, it's just you just have to be. Obviously, like in a zero sum sense, that's not the case. But like if you're putting in a little bit more work than everyone else, like liquid in some regimes can be a lot easier. And also, the nice thing about liquid for new entrants is that like you get to iterate a lot faster, and you get to find out what works and what doesn't. Whereas like VC cycles can be like years, if not decades.
Right.
So for newer entrants, it is easier to get into liquid because you find out sooner rather than later that like whether you're profitable or not, and you can iterate a lot faster, adapt, and evolve.
Interesting.
So there are trade-offs with the two.
Right. You were kind of most prominent in the bear market recently, a couple years ago, and then you kind of disappeared from Twitter, and now you're back. And you're back in an interesting time period where we've recently, we're recording February 4th. 2 days ago there was the kind of like massive liquidation event. Are we still in a bull market? Were we ever in a bull market?
We're quite undeniably we've quite undeniably been in a bull market for the past 2 years. I think if you look at Bitcoin price, for altcoins, they've had a rough go, and I think a lot of the sort of fanfare on Twitter that has been around me over the past year has just mainly been due to like being bearish on altcoins. Right now we're trading at levels on altcoins like that are similar to March of last year. Even though Bitcoin is almost doubled, like altcoin prices are the same. Which is like, if you told somebody that last year, they'd laugh in your face, right? They'd be like, there's no way Bitcoin go to 100K. We wouldn't have like a spectacular alt season. And a lot of people are still saying on the timeline that like alt season hasn't even happened yet. It's like there's like expectation that like, that was it. Like there's more. There's not more. But yeah, the biggest sort of call that I made last year was that like altcoins would go to zero. And yeah, I still maintain that view. I think it's like become quite consensus now. But back then, just like, looking at how much supply of alts was going to hit the market at that current price, it was just so obvious that like there was not enough money to buy every single one of these altcoins at those levels. And that's just the call I made back last year.
I think most kind of crypto participants have always thought that like alts or a basket of alts is kind of inherent Bitcoin beta, right? Where it's like, if I hold this basket of alts, I will outperform Bitcoin just on the merit that alts move more than Bitcoin, right? And in a bull market, everything goes up. However, this market has been, I think, disorienting for a lot of people because Bitcoin has gone up, but alts have gone sideways, down, up sometimes. So if you're a retail participant hearing that like alts are going to continue to go to zero, too much supply of alts, no bid, like what do you take away from that? Bid Bitcoin?
Yeah, I think we've seen like a steady shift. on this sentiment. Before, everyone just used to full port their favorite altcoins, and those people just got like eviscerated. And yeah, did you watch the Aiden Ross stream yesterday?
No.
Aiden Ross went on stream with like FaZe Banks, Frank D. Gods, a threat guy, like the LA Vape Cabal. It was like 100,000 viewers, and they were pitching Aiden a portfolio because Aiden has like $30 million of Ethereum. I think he got most of it from his stake deal where they send him ETH every week.
Oh, interesting.
And they were just telling him what he should put his money in. And, the portfolio was 70% Bitcoin, 10% Sol, 10% ETH, and then 10% hype and meme coins. And, like in my mind, I'm like, that's actually like not a bad, if you wanted to be fully allocated to crypto, like that's not a bad portfolio. That's like what a liquid fund would have, right?
Uh-huh.
So retail is smartened up. They realize that Bitcoin is good. Bitcoin goes up. These altcoins, they're speculative. I can't just full port these things. Like these meme coins can go to zero. We've seen it happen many times. Even though Bitcoin's gone straight up, even ETH, you can't even touch that much of ETH. Like not even ETH is safe anymore. So I think there has been like a sentiment shift in retail that like more into Bitcoin, especially as like the marginal retail buyer this cycle has been in ETFs and they can only buy Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm. Do you think we'll have an alt season, or have the dynamics kind of changed?
I think we've seen a few alt seasons already. Like when Ripple goes up 5, 6, 7x, like that is an alt season. Like when these AI agents just get $14 billion in market cap, that's an alt season. When like these things, they're smaller than 2021, and like Total 3's never made a new high since 2021. But there are clear reasons for that. Like the tech now versus the tech then it's a lot more cynical. And also, back then we had more like stimmy checks and people at home. So it's just like more of like a retail tech driven cycle, but this one's like more Bitcoin driven. So, we have been seeing some alt euphoria and also alt froth. And I'm not saying it's impossible, but like, right now in the near term, there's not like a clear catalyst for why we would see a 2021 level of alt euphoria.
Right. I guess when people talk about the alt season, they mean this kind of like secular bull run across like the top 250 coins at the very least. And then microcaps are even doing better sporadically, where like it's kind of a weird place, right? Like some of the hottest coins have been like 2-day bubbles, right? Like Vine recently, Jelly or whatever it was called. It was like they went to $250 million market caps overnight and now are, maybe not back to zero, but they've like most people have completely round tripped and lost money on those. So like the game has absolutely changed if you're closely observing retail participant, which I would guess most listeners of this podcast are kind of in that place. Why do you think that cycle has like sped up so much?
Yeah, I like this question. So like I outlined like the macro reasons for why the alts have run less than last cycle, but like the micro reasons why. One theory that I like is that the mechanism for extraction of money from retail has gotten a lot more efficient this cycle than last cycle. Mm-hmm. Whereas like the centralized exchanges, like the insiders, like the snipers, like the market makers, maybe less of the market makers, but those three are a lot better at like just taking money from retail quickly and with magnitude. So I think that's happening a lot more. It's like, when a meme coin breaks 100 million, like suddenly it gets listed everywhere. And then, everyone knows that they should like, first of all, everyone's like sniping a lot more of the supply. And then they're like waiting for this exchange launch and they like all hedge it up there. And then it's like over, right? The exchange launch is like the end. And they just keep running that back. And that's how you make the most money, right? Like going from 0 to 150 is a lot more money for these insiders than like going from 150 to $1 billion. So that's like one micro thesis. The second one is that there's just a lot more coins, a lot more narratives. And like, because everyone's more cynical, like they just rotate across the newest thing. Like no one thing can just sustain a long pump. So yeah, those are my two explanations for that.
Yeah, like today, did you see this Enron? Honestly, I was at the gym and stuff this morning, so I didn't really see what was going on, but I know this Enron meme coin launched. It went to like 600 million and now it's back at 200 or something. And
did I miss this runner? Oh man.
Well, it ran. That's the thing. It ran for like 6 minutes, right? And then, like literally, look. You can look at. I'm looking at the minute chart right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 minutes. Okay, it ran for 7 minutes, right? So it's like every time there's a runner, right? And people think there's a runner and they missed out on $1 bazillion. It ended up just being like retail got rinsed because they bought the top, right?
Fuck. I wish I sniped this. This one was good. Yeah. There's a lot. It's like there's a daily, there's a weekly runner, and like, everyone just expects it to go up and then down. And what's the next thing? Like that's just the meta right now.
And then, well, I think part of the reason that, I'm nowhere near as knowledgeable on this as you are, but I think part of the reason that that like alts can't kind of gather this momentum is because of stuff like this, where it's like a team with insider information that's good at value extraction, extracts value, and then that's $100 million or $50 million or $5 million that's been like, pulled out of the liquid markets. People talk about Pump Fund doing the same thing. I think there's an argument the other direction with Solana, but that like these teams like are pulling any new retail capital that's coming in is just getting pulled out versus like added into the kind of Ponzi as it was in 2021.
Exactly. I think the extraction of money from retail has gotten very, very efficient, and the cycles are a lot faster now.
The first time we chatted, you talked a lot about biases, and you mentioned a few of them. Kind of like these psychological biases that a lot of humans kind of fall to in trading or even in kind of day-to-day life. What biases have you observed to be the most useful to be aware of in your trading?
Yeah, that's a great question. Every trader likes to think that like they're the most unbiased person, and it's a lot easier to like point out the biases in other people than it is in yourself. So I guess I'll go into like, everyone's heard about like the classical biases, but I'll explain some of them that I learned that I had. I guess in the recent, year or two I've been trading. One of them is like when you do really well in like a certain regime, and then you like sort of are burned out and you want to take a break, but you kind of just hope the market like goes to zero so you can like take a break without having to worry about missing out. And if you have to recognize like that's like a bias. And if you don't, then like you might just like miss a lot of pumps and stuff. So like I noticed this in me in September, October, because I traded the bear market so well last year. I was like, all right, dude, I'm so burnt out. I'm so done. Like I just believed that Combo would win, and I believed all these coins would go to zero. Mm-hmm. And just like too much so. And it cost me a lot of money. I missed out on like the election pump.
Right.
But the funny thing is, like, I noticed this in other people later, like the people that made money on Hyperliquid in November. And then, like, in December, like, when the AI agents were probably like, dude, this thing's a scam. Like, this thing, everything's going to go to zero. This is a top signal. And the guys that made money on AI agents, when they saw the Trump and Melania thing, they're like, oh, dude, this thing's like a scam. Like, the market's going to go to zero. It's over. And then, it just, like, keeps going. So this is, like, an interesting bias that, like, I've learned after witnessing a bull market is that, like, the market doesn't end when you want it to end. It ends, it doesn't. You have no control. So, the only solution to this is just don't burn out. Like, it's important to not burn out because that being burnt out will make you trade differently. Another bias I noticed was like, when you're in a position, it's just a lot harder to view things objectively than when you're not in a position. Like, you just have confirmation bias. Like, everything that supports your position, you're like, oh, this is so true. Everything that goes against your position is, oh, that's noise. Oh, that's stupid. That's a retard saying it. So like, it's important to like only have on risk when you're really high conviction, and it's important not to have on risk at all times. At least like the way I trade, it's important not to have on risk because that's how you remain objective and that's how you hit the high opportunity thing. So the way I've been trading more recently is like I've been more selective with how I take on risk. I'm trying to not burn out. I'm trying to manage my mental side and try to remain as objective as possible so I can hit like those home runs and those high alpha setups instead of like trying to go for like singles here and there and just like killing myself for like, in the grand scheme of things, it's just like not very much money.
Right. Yeah, that's a really funny one. I find myself subject to like the reverse of that, where if I sell a position, I'm rooting for that coin to go to zero now. So like
Yeah,
I need to like because you're worried about not like making the gain. But in
exactly.
some ways, that's a bad kind of process, right? Where it's like, okay, if I'll go to the point where I think I have edge, and if I think there's no edge anymore, then I don't want to participate in that anymore.
Exactly. Like that's the tough part of trading is like the thinking that makes you the most money is not the natural way people think because people want to minimize regret. That's how most people think. And that type of thinking is not the same as like just maximizing EV. So
Mm-hmm.
you want to like minimize regret and still make money. And like it's impossible just to be one or the other because that makes you like a robot. Like you're not a human. I mean, some people can do it, but like it's hard to. But like sometimes you just have to give up a little EV so you can minimize regret and not like be emotionally distraught and not be tilted and just trade better. So finding knowing yourself and finding out the best spots to make those trade offs is why trading is such a personal journey.
Yeah, I think sometimes about like the role that crypto plays in modern society, and in a lot of people crypto represents hope, right? And this is a little out there, but and that goes into your regret minimization framework where it's like people want to be able to think that maybe tomorrow I'm gonna hit Donald Trump, at $1 million market cap and make $1 gazillion. And it's
Yeah.
like the role in crypto in their life is not actually necessarily about making money, but about being able to wake up in the morning and say like, okay, maybe tomorrow will be my day. And I think that's this
Yeah.
like pump fun, hyper gambling, dystopia, utopia, I don't know,
Yeah.
that a lot of traders and crypto participants feel.
I agree with you completely. And, I think this is why lottery tickets are so popular. It's like a $4 billion industry. I think the average American household spends like $600 a year on lottery tickets. And it's not because like it's a good way to make money. Like they're very minus EV and everyone knows it. But like, modern capitalism has like shaved off so much of the upside so that you get like, a consistent income and you can survive. And like, humans aren't made for that trade off. Like we need to take risk. We need to have upside. Like if you don't have upside, like you can be kind of miserable. It's like, oh wow, if I give up all my upside, then I'm going to be stuck working this job for like 40 years and then I retire. Like that's like a
Mm-hmm.
business. It's like hard to live like that. So that's why like people, that's why speculation is so in human nature because like you need to have some outlet to have exposure to the upside. And with crypto, it's like I don't know whether it's better or worse than lottery tickets. Some games are worse, but some games are better. So if you pick the right games, then you can actually do okay. And that's like the
Yeah,
appeal right now.
I think crypto is a little bit more meritocratic than lottery tickets, right? Like lottery tickets is just some dude, buying, spending 25% of his paycheck at the little like vending machine. Where crypto there is this idea of like I can improve, I can iterate, I can figure out a niche, I can figure out edge, I can build. There are many options to participate in crypto, and I think that is superior than like it's better for the average participant than just like a casino.
Yeah, like when you go to the casino, some people want to play slots and some people want to play poker. That's the difference.
Yeah, exactly. So you talked a little bit about Bitcoin. I'm curious, what do you denominate your portfolio in? Like, do you want to accumulate more Bitcoin? Is it about dollars? Is it about rent, food, and weapons, oil?
Do we have this conversation or is that like separate? We
Yeah,
did.
we've previously had this conversation.
Okay. I'm denominating in dollars currently. Like I like to be delta neutral. I mean, cash is a position at the end of the day. But I just think like, cash, it might be just like a steady burn down. Whereas like Bitcoin, you could argue, Bitcoin should go up and it should drift up, but like it is very volatile. And maybe I'm just a pussy, but like I just don't like holding that much volatility. I
Mm-hmm.
just like it's just hard for me day to day mentally. And like at the end of the day, what's going to make me the most money denominated in any asset is just holding it in a stable asset and just like finding alpha. So that's like how I do things. I just keep it in cash. I try, that's my baseline, and I'm just trying to like make alpha in the market. I can make, yeah, go ahead.
That's super interesting because I think for like the average person, right, they want to be long assets that go up. But if you truly have edge in a specific market, you want to be long a stable asset and then choose your opportunities, right? So that's probably not actually good advice for like the average investor in crypto. I don't know, maybe it is. Maybe you think it is.
No, here's the thing, Jack. Like the advice that people give, like you should just put all your money into Bitcoin, or sorry, into equities, and then that has been bastardized by Bitcoin. It's like, oh, you just put all your just DCA into Bitcoin, right? Like that's for people that have a steady job where the upside is like capped. So because their income is so steady, they need to have some volatility in their savings. So for someone like that, it makes sense. But like if your job is something where the upside is uncapped, then the thing you save in passively, which has no edge by definition, should be as stable as possible.
So accumulate USD.
That's just how I mean, it's different for everyone, but that's just how I operate.
Right. Two narratives I'd love your thoughts on, which maybe have been the two most prevalent narratives over the last year or so. The first one is kind of like meme coin mania, and then the second one is AI. And you can go one by one for those.
So the meme coins was interesting because like it was like kind of the pinnacle of this like nihilism about crypto. You know, it's just like, oh, like, you know, the tech is useless. Well, I don't want to play these insider games, so we'll play meme coins instead. Even though meme coins are like just as insidery as, you know, the normal coins, it's just a different set of insiders. Which is like normally the case with politics, right? People are like, oh, like the Dems are more corrupt than the Republicans or the other way around. But like, not really. It's just like a different set of people that are, you know what I mean? It's like the same thing. So like, there's just like a shift. And, you know, we saw a cycle and then it got kind of boring. And then we moved back towards the tech, like AI agents. It was like a very tech based sort of, but like, you know, now there's like AI agent meme coins. So it's like the best of both worlds. So, you know, I think we're going to keep seeing these types of rotations every month or two as people get bored and like, you know, the upside diminishes. Yeah.
So obviously one thing that's happened a lot recently is like the birth of the news meme, right? Where it's like Tulsi Gabbard gets nominated. All right, Tulsi Gabbard, the meme coin is going to go to $5 million today. But it's not like no one's investing in this coin because they think it's a long-term solid fundamental investment. Do you think that this cycle of like news memes, is that always going to exist now? This like just like the low level shit coinery? Or does that cycle kind of deplete over time?
I think that's a longer rotation or longer meta than other things. And here's why. Like so much of this cycle and Bitcoin's price depends on whether strategic Bitcoin reserves can get implemented or not. And, you know, that is up to the discretion of Trump's administration and then Congress. So because like everyone's already watching them for this decision, like they're going to be watching like other congressmen and other things for like political memes, like, you know, Melania, Barron, Eric Jr., World Liberty 5. So like, as long as like, you know, there's still uncertainty about whether there's going to be an SBR, I think like this political like meta is going to exist. So maybe that takes 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, who knows? But like it is a longer enduring thing than some of the other sectors.
Right. I think AI, you mentioned the AI agent meta as being a bit of a return to fundamentals. I think there's a whole other side of crypto that thinks that AI in crypto specifically is like completely vapor. What's your opinion?
I think it's completely vapor. But I don't know. I'm like open to certain use cases getting built that aren't vapor. Like, yeah. I mean, I'm not like a fan. I'm not like a huge. I don't think like, you know, this is like we're building something revolutionary with like a current iteration of AI agents with like, you know, these AI KOLs and what else. But like, you know, like maybe something pops up that could be useful. It always ends up surprising me. As long as the incentives are there to build something that like could be useful, like people always, you know, the entire world is trying their best to like think of something useful. So the bet against that is like, is tough. But, you know, like, yeah. I think it's the main reason why I have this, you know, sort of disposition with thinking these things are vapor is just so that like when I do long them, like I'm able to sell them. And that's the most important part, right? not to backlog to zero. And it's okay if you sell too early, but it's, if you sell too late, it could be at zero already. So that's where it helps the most for me.
Some of your early theses were around like fundamentals to some extent, right? Like you talked about Uniswap a lot. I remember there was like Arbitrum governance stuff that you were involved in. There were a lot of your early research was like pretty, required a lot. There was a lot behind it, right? It was substantive. And now it feels like a lot of crypto is vapor. Like, is there any fundamental game left in crypto, or is it all kind of like this narrative news sniping? Like what is left? What is left in crypto? Are there still fundamentals?
I'm glad you mentioned that, because like I think this is something that everyone's been observing. Like especially like your old very popular threads were like explaining like difficult fundamental concepts for people to like understand. And nowadays it's like a little, you can see how much fundamentals matter in the ETH BTC chart. That's my take. So like as ETH's importance in crypto has dwindled, like so has the tech. And I think they go hand in hand. The tech just matters less now. People are more cynical. And because of that, like these fundamental drivers, like, these like network upgrades, or like these like new protocols, or like this like fancy new way of, I don't know. These things all matter less because there's just less interest and less like retail dollars, chasing these narratives. So yeah, I mean, the space has gotten lower IQ for sure. There used to be like kind of like cool like mechanisms and like complicated stuff and like financial concepts and stuff. Now it's like none of that.
That's this take on ETH BTC. Like I love that ETH BTC showing the relevance, the decreasing relevance of tech is so interesting to me. So then with BTC, with regards to BTC, is that like the one asset that you see as kind of like, shining through the ether, or is Bitcoin another meme?
I think Bitcoin is another meme, but it's on like a different scale, right? It's like on the world scale, so it's
right.
It's harder to say, what it looks like. In my heart of hearts, in my deepest heart of hearts, I think Bitcoin is eventually going to fade and like into irrelevance, but it could take decades. So it's like you can't really trade off the view. I think it's like a fad. I've said this before. I think it's like rollerblading. But obviously, like, if the U.S. government goes and buys $100 billion of this thing in an SBR, like, it's here to stay for like a long period of time. So as long as the market thinks that is like a likelihood, then like it's going to be hard for like Bitcoin to like fade down. So that's what like the main theme I think of this year is just, is an SBR going to happen or is it not? And then, yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, or like, there are other catalysts that could happen, like maybe some other countries or maybe they adopt Bitcoin as like a means of trade. And I think is like very unlikely, but like if someone like takes the bait and does it, then like it's gonna be here for like a lot longer. So it's like hard to say. But yeah, my bias that I've always held, I could be wrong. Like I could be wrong on this, but like I've always held this bias that like Bitcoin's going to zero.
Do you think the rest of crypto goes to zero, or does it evolve?
I don't think Bitcoin was a literal zero, but like crypto has some use cases, right? Exchanges, stable coins, and like just like blockchain L1s. I think like
that's what Thiccy
says. Right? Yeah, that's his thing. And I think it's like very right. Like the stable coins are a useful way to like get people to adopt the dollar, save in the dollar. It's a good business. It's a good bank. You get like, they don't have to pay any deposit, like, they don't have to pay any interest on the deposits. There's $200 billion in there. They make 4 or 5% of that a year. It's an amazing business. And it is like a useful form of like a digital dollar. And exchanges are great. Like Bitcoin trades more than NVIDIA. Like these things, and NVIDIA like doesn't even take like TradFi equity exchanges. They don't take very many fees relative to crypto. Like taking 3-4 bips of fees is like insane. So like, given that volumes are similar and we're taking like an order of magnitude higher fees, it's just like an insane amount of money to the exchange. That gets like reinvested into new projects, new protocols. So like that will keep it alive for a bit. And like blockchains are like off, they're like on-chain casinos, on-chain exchanges as well. So like, it's hard for like a normal person like you or me to make money off of this because like you just can't go and buy Tether equity, right? You can't go and buy equity in Binance. Maybe you can long their tokens, but like they don't accrue nearly as much value as like their equity does. So it's hard to like make money investing unless you can get into those three things. But yes, there is some value being created.
Interesting. I'd like to dedicate the last kind of 15 minutes of this conversation to the like average retail participant. And I think that you've kind of proved that you, not to glaze you too much, but you've proved that you have kind of sustainable edge in the crypto markets. My brother-in-law is like, he texted me this week. He's like, should I buy XRP? Is it a good time to buy XRP? And I'm not asking you for your directional opinion on XRP by any means, but like, I would love to hear kind of what are your thoughts towards people who are trying to trade crypto markets in a slightly more active way? Like, how do you think people can get good at this?
Like, I think it's just like the same question. It's like, how do I get good at playing poker? And like yes, you could just go to the casino on Friday night, like after work, drink a few beers and just like gamble just for fun. But like if you want to take it seriously and like learn, like most of your time is spent like studying like the rules, studying strategy, like watching videos, like doing these kind of things. So I think like crypto's the same way. Like if you want to get good at trading crypto, you don't just like randomly pick a coin and then just buy it and then pray for the best. That's the same thing as like going to a casino on a Friday night and just gambling, right? Like if you want to get good, you have to just spend a fuck ton of time just staring at charts, just like, absorbing as much material as possible, like finding a mentor, like just like learning about how this thing works, market participants and everything. And just like trying to train like your pattern recognition and like finding things that like maybe the market's just slow at knowing. It's like literally like hunting, right? Like you just go out there and just try to find out where, the prey is. So I think it takes that kind of approach to start making money in this industry. And like, it's very difficult to it. As time goes on, it just gets more and more difficult. There's just more things you have to learn. There's more, market participants that like have had years of experience that like exist and can survive and thrive that you're competing against. So there's just like so much like background stuff that like it takes a long time to actually start consistently make money. So like, are you going to have that patience and discipline and that drive to like learn how to do it? Or are you just trying to like, are you just like a tourist, right? Are you just here to like play a few games at the table on a Friday night and then, go back home to what you normally do? Like that's like the difference. I think it's like fine if you want to do both, or if you want to be a tourist, it's fine. But like you should then view it as like, I'm here to make money. It's like, no, I'm here to just gamble on XRP.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think though a fundamental difference between poker and crypto is like poker, there's the rules of poker, but then you have like the canon of poker, which is all the books and classes and tutorials that are set up to help you become a better poker player. And I think in crypto that stuff exists, but it's often scammy. It's hard to find. It represents a much smaller portion of what's being talked about in the crypto industry. Most people are talking about like direct speculation and not the concepts of how to make money. So I think it's harder to find that, like to learn about crypto, right?
It is. There are materials out there, but they're like, far and few between. And, the reason is because like poker doesn't scale as much as trading. So even if you're the best poker player in the world, it doesn't really matter if you teach people how to beat like some fishy stakes. It doesn't really matter. But like if you're like the best trader in the world, like teaching someone to beat Bitcoin, like if you can just like trade Bitcoin profitably, there's no reason why you can't be just like a mega billionaire, right? If you make the right decision, it doesn't matter how much size you're putting into it. You can just leverage it infinitely. But that's the difference between like, trading and like, something like poker. Is like you're just less incentivized for people to teach you how to do it. It just doesn't make any
Right.
sense.
Poker is not a market. Poker is not a market that needs to be made efficient. Poker has, there's value on the table no matter what.
It's like the market's a lot more fragmented.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go beat your home game, like it doesn't change how much money I make. But in trading, it's different. If you can beat Bitcoin, like that kind of takes away from how much I can beat Bitcoin because we're competing over the same thing. It's like one giant table.
I'd like to talk about like specializing in specific sectors of the crypto market. Obviously, we've seen the emergence of, altcoin traders, on-chain specialists, meme coin traders now. You have like the macro Bitcoin guys, leverage traders. There's like so many disciplines now in crypto. Do you think that traders have to try everything? Do they have to kind of grind at one thing to get good?
I think it's a stylistic thing. Obviously, like, if you're the best in the world at one thing, you will make the most money because you only have to be right once and the world rewards you, right? If you just right once with a lot of leverage. But, the regimes change so much. Like what makes money one day is not the same as what makes money a month from now. So if you like specialize and you spend a lot of time and resources in the wrong thing and that doesn't even matter anymore, like there is a lot of risk to that. So it is important to like familiarize yourself with like what the different metas are and like what I could possibly need to learn. And hopefully, when you first start out, you pick up skills that generalize to everything. Like, just like figuring out how to enter a trade, how to size your bets, how to, take profit, how to stop out, and how to manage risk over like, a multiple day period. Like these things generalize to every meta. But like certain things like, how do I snipe on chain and just find out the holder distribution versus like, oh, how do I analyze this, project that's listed on an exchange and like, how do I, evaluate tokenomics and how do I like, put on a perp position and look at funding and positioning, stuff like those things are like niche and like, what makes money wonders, like, those things might not age as well, but the fundamentals and the basics are like, they're timeless. They will apply to any regime. It's just a capital allocation problem, like we were talking earlier. Like capital allocation in a capitalistic world it's a timeless, infinitely scalable skill that like you just have to learn if you want to make money in this world in the modern age.
That's an interesting thing. So you think the world is increasingly rewarding people who are good at speculating and capital allocation over people who are kind of like producing?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like they reward capital more than labor. And, they're actively trying to replace and diminish the value of labor with AI, with robotics. Like soon, if we just solve AI, like if we get AGI, we solve robotics, then like we're in a post-economic world where the only thing that matters is capitalism or is capital, not labor. So it's important in this age to, as labor is like, everyone knows like labor's power is vastly decreasing. It has been vastly decreasing over the past hundreds of years, but like, especially, I don't know about especially now, but like, that's the narrative right now is it's like very like feasible why we can see labor being replaced. Like, yeah, capital and like how to be capitalist strategies for being capital maps a lot more.
So you think speculation is kind of like creative in a way that AI will never be able to completely, dominate?
I think speculation is a segment of capital allocation. So I'm just going to speak broadly on capital allocation. I think AI is going to aid in capital allocators. As a capital allocator, you can do a lot more with a lot less with AI. Will it completely replace it? I don't know. It's hard to say. Like, I think obviously the first step is like, how much can it aid? And if it can take over 100%, like maybe, I don't know what that looks like. But like a lot of these games that like end up forming with capital, like crypto's a giant game, right? Like it's trading stocks. It's like a game and there's like a meta. These things are like, they're kind of made by humans and it takes a lot of data to iterate. And, like maybe if, the best trader in the world, like George Soros, like uploaded his consciousness into an LLM, like maybe you could like help him or maybe even like sort of replace him. So like maybe there's a world where like the best traders in the world like can scale a lot more by just like everything they like train like their own personnel every thought they've had, right? Because like at the end of the day, like your own intuition is like not that complicated, like your thinking patterns aren't that complicated. It's like you just see some data, you just process a certain way, and like whatever.
Right. So AI has like a counter argument to this is AI like wins at Texas Hold'em. Like AI has beat Texas Hold'em and can beat any human, right? Originally it was like tic-tac-toe, and then it was chess, and now AI can win at poker, which is another game that a lot of people compare is pretty similar to crypto. So if AI can beat poker, can AI beat crypto? I think maybe. I don't even know what the world would look like if now AIs can outtrade humans, but it's an interesting thought.
Yeah. With every game, going from checkers to chess to poker, like the amount of like states and decision paths just go up exponentially. And, if compute just keeps scaling exponentially, like why can't we just simulate the entire world? And like, if we could do that, then like, why can't we just solve trading? I don't know. That's how like we think right now. But like, obviously these things aren't just like perfectly linear, right? Like a lot of times like we hit some plateau in progress that like delays us by a decade or two. So like, I don't know, like the range of time that we can hit this is like very wide. And maybe there's like a war that like derails it. Maybe there's just some like scarcity of some natural resource that we rely on. Who knows? But like, assuming we solve those things, that is the path we are going on.
You could have one piece of advice to give to the average trader. What would you say to them?
Average retail trader, or like someone who's like trying to do this full
time? How about the average retail trader?
Okay. The most important thing to improve is to find a mentor. Just like find someone who does it better than you and like can coach you. It's the same thing as like any, getting good at any skill. You just need someone to teach you. It's hard to like do it from yourself.
Right.
You're just gonna like waste a lot of time, right? Like if I want to get good at basketball, I'm gonna like hire someone to teach me how to play basketball. So it's the same thing. It's like harder to find someone to hire. It's like you need to find someone who's like better than you, and like you have to like convince him or her that it's worth their time to help you out, teach you. It could be a friend, I don't know, but like. I think finding someone who like understands more than you and having them teach and coach you is the best way to improve. And it's not just like one person; it's like constantly trying to find people that can teach you things that you aren't good at or you don't know. And yeah, it's like a self-improvement journey. So yeah, I think like it's hard. Don't be overconfident and just like read like an article from like some random thing. They just like start gambling. Like try to get better outside of just trading. And like learning more about things.
Awesome. Thanks so much for the advice, Thiccy. We really, really appreciate your time here. And I look forward to continuing to see your trajectory in the crypto space. It's a privilege to chat with you.